Today our lesson in 8th grade is going to be on angles and some special angle pairs. Let's start off by just reviewing what we know about basic angles. Acute, obtuse, and right are the three main types of angles, and we also will add what straight angles are. Acute angles are angles that have a degree measure of less than 90 degrees. Obtuse are greater than 90 degrees, and right angles are 90 degrees. Oftentimes you see a little box in the corner to show that they are 90 degrees or a right angle. How you can check if you don't have a protractor to measure and see if they are acute or obtuse is you do what we call the paper test. Place the corner of your paper into the vertex, and this is the vertex or where the two rays connect on your angle. And if you cannot see one of the other rays, then it's going to be an acute angle. If you can see one of the rays of your angle, then it's going to be obtuse. We use protractors in order to measure angles. Here is an acute angle. You always line up your protractor with one of the rays along the zero. Since I've lined it up here on the zero, then I'm counting using the bottom numbers, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and then you count how many little marks past the 60. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this looks like it is 64 degrees. And it is an acute angle. Okay, now let's talk about some special angle pairs. Part of this is a review. I know we had this last year. Complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. Now they can be what we call adjacent, where they share a ray or a side. This one's a 40-degree angle, then this one's a 50-degree angle if they're complementary, because together they add up to be 90 degrees. They can also be just two separate angles. Let's say this is angle A, and this is angle B. We can say that angle A and angle B are complementary because their two measurements together add up to be 90 degrees. Supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 180 degrees. Again, they can share a side, 140 and 40 equals 180 degrees, or they can be totally separate angles. The way I remember is complementary C comes first in the alphabet, therefore it's a smaller measurement of 90 degrees. Supplementary, think of straight. Supplementary angles make a straight angle or 180 degrees. Okay, then what is the supplement of a 75-degree angle? Well, supplementary angles add up to be how much? Okay, 180. So I'm thinking to myself, 180 minus 75, and what do you get? You get 105 degrees. Okay, so 105 degrees plus 75 degrees, does that out to be 180? It sure does. What is the complement of a 75-degree angle? Excuse me. All right, I'll take 90 minus 75. And what do you come up with? Good, 15 degrees. Because together, 15 and 75 add up to be 90 degrees. Okay, a term that you need to be familiar with is adjacent. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side. I can say that angle A and angle B are adjacent. They share a common side. And this is the little angle symbol. Angle A and angle B are adjacent because they share a common side. Okay, the next type of very special angle pairs are called vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed from two intersecting lines, any lines that cross or intersect, just like an intersection in the street. Opposite angles are congruent, or they have the same measure, and this is your congruency symbol. So that we can say that angle A and angle C are congruent. They're exactly the same. We can say that the measure of angle B and angle D are congruent. Okay, so vertical angles are opposite and congruent angles formed by two intersecting lines. So for instance, let's say that the measure of angle A was 120 degrees. Can you tell me then the measure of angle C? Okay, it's going to be the same. It's also 120 degrees. What's going to be the measure of angle B? Well, C and B are what kind of angles? Ooh, they form a straight angle, so they're called supplementary. So that if C is 120 degrees, what will be? Okay, measure of angle B will be 60 degrees because together they add up to be 180. Okay, if I know B is 60 degrees, what then is the measure of angle D? It is 60 degrees. Any questions on vertical angles? Okay, now this is then is a set of, we're going to talk about corresponding angles. Angles form from two parallel lines. Parallel lines are lines that will never touch, but they are cut by another line. We call that the transversal. Parallel lines cut by a transversal. They give us some really special characteristics of angles. Now, if you look at it very carefully, if I looked at those two lines, they just look like what we just looked at, vertical angles. 2 and 3 are opposite, so they're going to be the same. 1 and 4 are opposite, so they're going to be the same. And I can say the same for these two lines. They look like two intersecting lines, therefore opposite angles are congruent and the same. 6 and 7 are the same, 5 and 8 are the same, or pairs. Okay, when we talk about corresponding, we're going to look at some other angle pairs as well. We're going to say that angle 1 corresponds with angle 5. Angle 3 corresponds with angle 7. Angle 2 corresponds with angle 6. And angle 4 corresponds with angle 8. And they are the same. Now from a parallel lines cut by transversal, we have some other special angle pairs. The first one's going to be the alternate interior angles. Okay, when you think of interior, think of inside the parallel lines. Alternate means kind of opposites, opposite sides. So the alternate interior angles would be 3 and 6. And we know that those two look like they're both obtuse, so they're going to have the same measure, and we call them congruent. And measures 4 and 5. Okay, those both are two alternate interior pairs. Angles 3 and 6 are going to be the same, and 4 and 5 are going to be the same. Okay, then the next term is alternate exterior angles, which those lie on the outside of the parallel lines. So which one's going to be the alternate exterior angle to angle 1, do you think? Yes, good. It's going to be 8. See how they're both acute? They're going to be the same measure. And which one matches or corresponds and be congruent with angle 2? You got it, angle 7. And we already talked about the corresponding angles, 1 and 5, 3 and 7, 2 and 6, 4 and 8. And you can write those down. Okay, now here comes the fun part. I can give you the measure of just one of those angles, and you can find the measurement of all the rest, all of the 7 remaining angles. Let's give it a try. Let's say the measure of angle 2 is 110 degrees. Okay, I want you and your partner to think, what are the remaining measures of angles 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? When you think you have them, raise your hand. I'll come around and check you, and then we'll go over them. Okay, some of you chose to go with the vertical angle. In other words, 2 and 3 are the same, so you knew that 3 had to be 110 degrees. Some of you chose to do supplementary angles. 1 and 2 are supplementary. So if I know that 2 is 110 degrees, what degree measure would add up to be 180? And it would be a 70-degree angle. Okay, I know that 1 and 4 are vertical angles, so they are the same. So 4 is a 70-degree angle. Okay, you know that 5 is going to be also 70 degrees. We know it two different ways because 4 and 5 are congruent because of alternate interior angles, and 1 and 5 are congruent because they're corresponding angles. Okay, what's the measure of angle 6? It's going to be 110. We know that a couple different ways. 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles, and we know that 2 and 6 will be the same because they are corresponding angles. All right, we'll end up with 7 is 110 degrees, and then 8 is 70 degrees. Again, you could choose by vertical angles, you know that, or by corresponding angles, 3 and 7, 4 and 8, or by alternate exterior angles, 2 and 7, 1 and 8. All right, then that concludes our lesson on special angle pairs. Okay, we have one more little note. One other set of special angles are formed from perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines, I'm assuming you kind of already remember this, but just in case you haven't had this, this is really an important term, that perpendicular lines are formed from intersecting lines, and they form right angles or 90-degree angles. Perpendicular lines intersect to form 90-degree angles.